Good evening, everyone. This is Henry Gamble with SimplerOptions.com, and in tonight's free video, I wanted to touch on the oil and gas sector here a bit because this is one of the areas that, admittedly, I have been a little bit more on the bearish side of things. I haven't necessarily been playing them to the short side, but I've had that opinion, and I've got to really approach that and say that there's really not any reason to focus on it in that direction anymore. Now, natural gas, maybe you could argue that it's been in a trend. It started strong today and gave back some gains. Crude was pretty much the opposite. Started off weak and was able to pair those. I don't know that trading them through these types of products is necessarily the easiest place to look. So instead what I do is drop down into some of our individual underlyings. Three that I want to discuss with you tonight, one of which is CVX. Now, I look at this chart, and we're going to go over three. Essentially, there's going to be one of which I look to play, and hopefully the others, just the analysis you may find helpful. But when I look at CVX, the only thing that I'm not crazy about, it's definitely still a good bullish chart because we're above our broad moving averages. We are respecting symmetry from our previous declines, and that all looks solid. The only thing I'm not wild about is you'll notice how the parabolic SAR is still printing above price, and we continue to close below the 21 EMA. That's not quite as attractive, and I would prefer to see those things shift before I start getting too excited about playing into the long side. One other that I have on my watch list is PXD. Now when I look at this chart, I think this looks a little bit more accommodating because you can see how the parabolic SAR is below price, we've recovered the 21 EMA, everything here looks pretty solid. When I come over and take a look at an options chain, this is where I feel it might differentiate some people because when you look at these options, and we'll just kind of look at these here at the money, these aren't necessarily terribly cheap. The way that I would want to play this, since it has a fairly clean setup, would be the first thing that comes to mind is directional calls, but those are kind of pricey. Now if that's something you'd like to do and you're okay with either of them, probably don't need to go any further into it, but they're a little pricey, they're a little, maybe a tiny bit thin, so I would still buy that one. But then I also wanted to include Halliburton with my analysis because this is where I think we can find a sweet spot between all of these, because notice how this one has come down to your fire line and held. We're above the 21 EMA, parabolic SAR is in our favor, and we had a good strong day today. Now hopefully tomorrow it will open up in a spot where I can still buy it. You know, it didn't gap up to 43 because then that's going to make this much more difficult to act on. But if we come out and look at these options, and I'm focusing on being a month out right now, notice how you have a huge chunk of open interest at the 44s, and then also notice how this is right at a 1272 extension. It is also pretty much right in there in line with your snow line. And then one more thing to complement the idea that these expire worthless. Your expected move into that 25-day out expiration would suggest that you stay below 44. I try to use all this information to then say that might be a good place to set up a butterfly against. So if we buy the butterfly there, I was pricing it out first, something like this, going $3 wide on each side. It's going to go about 80 cents, and then of course the idea being that you got a pretty decent break-even price over the course of the next 25 days. You have set up your body to try and utilize resistance and the expected move as best you can, and then we see if we can get that daily squeeze to fire. So I hope you guys find that helpful. Gives you a few things to consider for your setups and a couple other places to watch for the oil and gas sector. One other thing I wanted to make sure you are aware of is the 2016 Austin mentorship that we'll be putting on. So this is going to be June 26th through the 28th. It will include myself, John Carter, Bruce, pretty much our whole crew. It's really one of our prized events, and I consider myself quite fortunate to be part of such an awesome team, and getting the chance to go and present and speak with these guys is awesome. Being in a local environment where you can actually click with people on a one-on-one basis as opposed to just being online is something that I've always enjoyed, and people seem to find it helpful. So if that's something that interests you, I would love to see you there. Otherwise, I will see you at the next free video.